Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is the place where we cut through the noise, providing you with the essential knowledge you need to be truly well-informed. Today, however, we are not diving into external affairs or global geopolitics.
No.
We are diving into the greatest complex system of all, your own mind. We are seeking the shortcut to understanding yourself.
Indeed. And it feels increasingly necessary to shift this focus inward, doesn't it?
It really does.
The modern experience is one of just, constant information overload and external chaos. The news cycle, the political landscape, the global economy, all of it seems designed to generate anxiety and focus our attention relentlessly on things that are fundamentally outside of our immediate control.
Absolutely. And the natural inclination is to try and grab the steering wheel of the world, isn't it?
Yeah.
To try and manage that exterior chaos.
Of course.
But what the incredibly rich stack of sources we've examined for today reveals is a profound and, I think, a counterintuitive truth. That lasting health, genuine control, and sustained happiness are found not in managing the world, but in mastering the mind. This is the internal revolution, and the knowledge required to execute it is now backed by some very serious hard science.
Precisely. And what makes this deep dive so compelling is the vast synthesis of material we're looking at. It's bridging what we sometimes perceive as, disparate fields. We are drawing upon profound wisdom from the East, specifically the insights of the respected Buddhist monk Haemin Sunim,
Right.
and placing that directly alongside the rigorous evidence-based research emerging from the West. We're looking at pioneering work from Harvard psychologists like Dr. Ellen Langer and going deep into the cellular mechanisms with neurobiology experts such as Dr. Martin Picard and Bruce Lipton.
It is a remarkable collection of thinkers. Our mission, then, is to extract the most actionable science and the most profound wisdom on how our beliefs, our established mental habits, and our moment-to-moment internal dialogue fundamentally dictate our physical health, our emotional resilience, and our capacity for daily happiness.
And if we must establish one central thesis before we proceed, it is this. We must definitively discard the outdated concept of Cartesian dualism.
Now, let's pause there because that term, Cartesian dualism, is critical to understanding the modern scientific roadblock. What exactly are we discarding?
Well, historically, particularly since Descartes, Western philosophy and much of early medicine posited that the mind, the thinking, conscious, possibly spiritual part, was entirely separate from the machine, the body.
Okay, so two different things.
Two different things. The mind operated in one sphere and the physical body operated in another. We saw them as distinct. But modern neurobiology and psychoneuroimmunology confirm the separation is a complete illusion.
An illusion.
Completely. The mind and body are not merely linked. They are one unified, integrated system. Your psychological state is not a secondary factor in your biology. It is, quite literally, driving your biological outcomes. Your thoughts are not simply ethereal. They are physiological events that trigger measurable chemical and physical consequences throughout your entire system.
Okay, let's unpack this unity through the lens of empirical evidence. For centuries, conventional medical thought has insisted that healing primarily requires medication or purely physical intervention. If you are ill, you seek a pharmaceutical solution or a surgical procedure. What does the cutting-edge science, particularly the work of Dr. Ellen Langer, say about the sheer power of thought in affecting the physical machine?
The science says that this separation, as we've noted, is an outdated paradigm that severely limits our potential for healing and self-regulation. And we have to turn immediately to Dr. Ellen Langer.
A pioneer.
A true pioneer who achieved the distinction of being the first woman ever to be tenured in psychology at Harvard. Her decades of research have been dedicated to proving unequivocally that we must put the mind and body back together. As Dr. Langer herself describes it, they are merely different words we use to describe the same underlying organism.
And a most iconic illustration of this principle, the one that truly challenged the notion of irreversible biological decline, is her famous counterclockwise study. The results are, frankly, astonishing.
They are beyond extraordinary. In this experiment, Dr. Ellen Langer took a group of old mensum in their late 70s and 80s, many of whom relied on canes or even walkers for mobility.
Right.
And she immersed them for 1 week in a meticulously crafted retreat environment. This retreat was retrofitted to feel exactly as it was 20 years prior, psychologically transiting them to 1959.
So this wasn't just passive nostalgia, was it? This was a total enforced mental time travel.
That's the key.
They were surrounded by newspapers, magazines, and music from the past. And critically, They were explicitly instructed to talk about life and current events as if they were currently unfolding in that period. They were mentally inhabiting their 20 years younger selves.
Exactly. The psychological manipulation was total immersion, demanding that their minds operate within the constraints of a younger identity. And the results, achieved without the administration of a single drug or physical therapy, were immediate and measurable.
So what were these specific markers that responded to just a cognitive shift?
Well, standardized tests showed significant improvements in several key markers of aging. Their vision improved, their hearing improved, their memory and cognitive functions showed significant gains.
Just from thinking they were younger.
Just from that shift. Their grip strength increased, their manual dexterity was noticeably enhanced, and furthermore, perhaps the most convincing evidence was the subjective observation.
How was that?
External observers, who were completely blind to the study's purpose, remarked that the men looked noticeably younger. And get this, even the length of their fingers increased due to the increased movement they were performing.
That is profound. You had men who, as Dr. Langer recalls, seemed so frail that she initially questioned the ethics of the experiment. She was worried they might not even survive the week.
That's right.
Yet their simple, sustained shift in mindset was enough to directly influence physical, biological aging mechanisms.
It confirms the core thesis. When you put your mind somewhere, you are necessarily putting your body there. If the mind believes it is younger, the cascade of hormonal and neurological responses aligns the physical system with that belief.
It's incredible.
And Dr. Langer stresses that this study directly contradicts the fatalistic notion that sickness and aging are identical processes. She suggests you can live your entire life without succumbing to the chronic illnesses we associate with age, provided you maintain an active state of cognitive engagement, which she defines as mindfulness, constantly noticing new things.
But the question remains, what is the mechanism? Is this purely a placebo effect, the expectation of feeling better? Or is something deeper happening at the cellular level?
And that's the critical juncture. Dr. Langer acknowledged the potential for expectation, but her argument, supported by subsequent research, is that expectation is the mechanism.
So the belief drives the biology.
The conscious directive triggers the physiological reality. However, to understand the deeper machinery being affected, we must look inside the cell, which brings us to the work of Dr. Martin Picard.
Okay, so we move from the macro effects of psychology to the micro realm of cellular energy. Dr. Picard's work on mitochondria provides the framework for understanding how psychological stress translates into physical exhaustion and chronic illness.
Yes. Dr. Picard is a leading neurobiology expert, and he uses energy as the primary language of the body. He posits that our entire human experience, our ability to think, our emotional resilience, our consciousness, emerges entirely from the efficient flow of energy within the system.
And mitochondria, of course, they're famous as the powerhouse of the cell, but their role is far more complex than just generating ATP, isn't it?
Oh, much more complex. They are integral to the body's entire communication network. They act as sensors for the cell's environment, constantly responding to signals of stress, inflammation, and nutrient availability. When things go wrong, as Dr. Picard observes, disease, almost universally, is linked to impaired mitochondrial function and a resulting systemic energy drain.
So what is the precise relationship between chronic psychological stress and these microscopic energy factories? How does worrying about a deadline actually affect my cells?
Stress, whether it's acute physical trauma or chronic psychological worry, is fundamentally destructive because it literally steals energy from the systems required to maintain health, repair, and immunity.
It's an energy thief.
That's a perfect way to put it. When you activate the fight or flight response, the resources, the potential energy that Dr. Picard notes is enough to power a 100-watt light bulb for a day, are diverted away from repair and towards preparedness for an emergency.
This concept of systemic interconnectedness is fascinating. It's not just one cell being affected, the whole network breaks down.
Precisely. He uses a superb analogy, the metronome experiment. If you place several metronomes on a shared, malleable surface, like a flexible wooden board, and start them completely out of sync,
They're all ticking at different times.
completely different times, but after a period, they will naturally synchronize because energy is exchanged through that shared conductive medium. Our body is that medium. When one part of the system is stressed, it generates resistance, and the entire system loses synchronization and efficiency.
The result is what Dr. Picard calls energy resistance. So if stress is high, resistance is high, and the system is operating at a debilitating level of inefficiency.
Which highlights the actionable insight here. Our focus must be on decreasing this internal energy resistance. We decrease resistance through two key strategies: rest and appropriate exercise. And here's the crucial nuance often missed in fitness regimes.
What's that?
Adaptation, meaning the creation of new, more efficient mitochondria, happens during rest, not during the high-intensity exercise itself. The exercise breaks down the old, but the repair and building process demands stillness. You must therefore prioritize and cherish the rest period, the time for cellular synchronization, as much as the intensity of the workout.
Part 1 has firmly established the scientific unity of mind and body. But if we accept that our thoughts and our mind dictate our physical reality, why are so many of us, even those armed with positive intentions, detailed knowledge, and a strong conscious desire for success, stuck in patterns of poor health, financial struggle, or relationship turmoil?
Well, now,
We need to talk about the hidden mental patterns that keep us trapped.
this is the essential transition from the biological connection to the psychological mechanism of self-sabotage, an area where Bruce Lipton, a cell biologist, has focused much of his career. He identifies what he calls the 95% problem.
The 95% problem is a brutal statistic for anyone trying to rely purely on willpower. It states that our conscious mind, the part that sets goals, has wishes, reads the self-help books, and tries to meditate, is only actively in charge for about 5% of our waking day.
That's the generous estimate. The other 95% of our lives, our default behaviors, our reactions, our emotional responses, are run by the subconscious mind.
An autopilot.
Think of the subconscious not as a conscious intelligence, but as a hard drive running preloaded programs. And critically, these programs were primarily downloaded unfiltered during our formative years, specifically before the age of 7.
Why is that pre-age 7 period so crucial for this mental programming?
During those early years, a child's brain is often operating predominantly in the theta brainwave state. This is essentially a state of hypnosis or deep suggestibility.
They're just like a sponge.
Exactly. The child learns the rules of engagement for life, how to react, what is safe, what is attainable, what they are worthy of, by observing their parents and their immediate environment. There is no critical filter during this period to vet the information. It is simply accepted as truth.
And what are the real-world implications of these passively received programs?
Bruce Lipton delivers the shocking statistic. He estimates that up to 60% of these downloaded programs can be disempowering, self-sabotaging, or limiting beliefs.
60%.
60%. They are not your programs. They are copies of your parents' or society's fears and limitations. This explains the struggle. If you are striving for something, be it robust health, career success, or a stable relationship, and constantly hitting a wall, it is not a lack of willpower in that tiny 5% conscious mind.
No.
It's because the overwhelming 95% subconscious program is running a script that actively undermines the goal. You are constantly fighting an autopilot that is programmed for failure.
It's the ultimate paradox. We are fighting our own deepest programming, but we can't see the code running.
Exactly. Dr. Lipton uses a wonderful, familiar story to illustrate this invisibility. He says we often see our friends behave in certain ways that mirror their parents perfectly. You might say to a friend, "My goodness, you sound just like your mother in that moment," and the friend will almost always deny it emphatically.
I am nothing like my mother.
Exactly that. And that denial proves the program is subconscious. The friend cannot see it running, but everyone else can. And the same is true for us.
He also connects this directly to his own life story, which adds tremendous weight to his theory on programming and relationships.
It does. Bruce Lipton shared that he struggled immensely with finding and maintaining loving relationships for decades, precisely because his subconscious program, inherited from his youth, did not support the kind of deep, secure connection he consciously desired.
So his 5% conscious mind wanted love, but his 95% program was running a different script.
A completely different script. He recounts that until he engaged with energy psychology techniques specifically designed to rewrite those deep-seated subconscious beliefs, he was on a lifelong path of struggle and short-lived relationships.
And after.
Once he addressed the program, he transitioned into what he now describes as living heaven on earth, enjoying a thriving, successful partnership that has lasted for 26 years and counting. He emphasizes that if that underlying program had not been changed, that partnership would never have stabilized.
That gives tremendous agency back to the individual, shifting the locus of control from external fate to internal programming. If we are struggling, we must address the program. This leads us to the most fundamental choice that overrides all programming. the choice of perspective, especially when facing deep suffering.
This brings us to the passionate philosophy of Mo Gaudat, the former chief business officer for Google X, who dedicated himself to solving the equation for happiness after the tragic and sudden death of his son Ali more than a decade ago.
A truly terrible event.
Unimaginable. And Mo Gaudat insists, based on his engineering background and his personal experience, that happiness is 100% a choice and a skill you can cultivate.
This is a challenging assertion when faced with genuine, overwhelming suffering, such as the loss Mo Gaudat experienced or the pain of chronic illness. How does he reconcile the truth of immense pain with the idea that happiness is a choice?
He does so by making a crucial distinction between pain and suffering. Pain, he argues, is the initial reaction, the biological or emotional response to an event, and it's inevitable.
Okay.
Suffering, however, is the cognitive layer on top of the pain. His core philosophy states that suffering is the gap between the events of life and your expectation of how life should have unfolded.
So if I am suffering, I am clinging to an unwritten service-level agreement that life should always be perfect, comfortable, or aligned with my desires.
Precisely. He suggests that most situations are actually neutral, like the rain. If you're caught in a downpour and are upset, you aren't upset about the water, you're upset because you expected the sun. It is the expectation that causes the suffering, not the event itself.
Right.
And he has a profound thought experiment designed to cut through our attachment to victimhood, which he calls the eraser test.
Please walk us through Mo Gaudat's eraser test, because it directly challenges the perceived utility of past pain.
Right. Mo Gaudat would ask his students to identify the most painful, difficult memory in their life, the moment that fundamentally shaped them, often for the worse. He would then ask them, if a piece of technology existed that could completely erase that event from space-time, would you use it?
And I imagine most would initially say yes to get rid of the trauma.
Initially, yes. But there's a caveat, isn't there?
Go on.
The crucial caveat is this. Erasing the event means erasing every single positive consequence, every lesson learned, every relationship that resulted, every piece of hard-won wisdom that stemmed from that original struggle.
And the result of applying that caveat.
He found consistently that 98% of people would immediately put their hands down and choose not to erase the pain.
98%.
Mo Gaudat argues this is the ultimate proof that deep down they are retrospective beneficiaries of their pain. They are grateful for the struggle because it made them the complex, capable person they are today. The pain was the price of admission for their current wisdom.
He applies this extremely powerful reframing directly to the profound loss of his son, Ali. It is perhaps the highest stakes demonstration of this philosophy.
It is the ultimate test. Mo Gaudat notes that the painful, horrific moment of Ali's death happened in the past, yet people constantly fuel that thought in the present moment, torturing themselves by mentally replaying the scene thousands of times.
Which is the definition of suffering in his view.
Exactly. He asks, where is the wisdom in that repetitive suffering? It won't bring Ali back. The empowering truth, the perspective he chooses, is to focus on the reality that Ali lived for 21 wonderful years, a life that was a profound, immense blessing. He concludes that the blessing was worth enduring the pain of his loss 1,000 times over. It transforms victimhood into gratitude, simply through an act of deep framing and conscious perspective choice.
The insight from Mo Gaudat proves that our perspective is the key leverage point against painful reality. We've established the mind-body unity and the power of internal choice. Now, let's transition into the practical toolkit. What specific daily techniques can we use to execute this mental rewiring and maintain our equilibrium?
Yes.
We start with the immense stress of seeking external approval.
This issue is pervasive in modern, highly connected life. The Buddhist monk Haemin Sunim offers potent wisdom here. He defines people-pleasing not as simple kindness, but as a form of attempted control, specifically trying to control what other people think of you.
An impossible task.
Completely. It causes immense psychological strain and energy drain. He states simply that we have no control over what others think, say, or write about us.
And his practical tip for dealing with this stress is brilliantly radical in its simplicity.
It is. Don't even ask. Don't go looking for validation, and certainly don't go looking for criticism. Why invite stress into your system that is entirely outside your ability to manage?
It's about letting go.
The underlying wisdom is letting go of the need for external affirmation. Instead of seeking validation externally, Haemin Sunim suggests you must become your own validator.
How does one practically achieve this internal self-validation when the habit of seeking external metrics is so ingrained?
Haemin Sunim suggests keeping a running list, a ledger, if you will, of your own achievements and positive contributions over the past few years.
So you create your own evidence.
You do. When you feel the need to check your standing with others, or when you encounter inevitable criticism, you review your own record. This practice creates an inner deposit of self-gratitude and affirmation, proving your worthiness regardless of fleeting external opinions. It's an act of self-reliance that conserves mental energy.
He also links this self-reliance to a greater, purpose-driven happiness, connecting back to the idea of service.
Indeed. Haemin Sunim observes that trying to make yourself happy, or trying to achieve perfect internal peace in isolation, has no guarantee of success. But trying to make other people happy almost ensures greater personal happiness.
That's a fascinating paradox.
It is. He cites his own volunteer work with homeless people in Korea, noting that after 2 or 3 hours of intense, focused service, he always felt a profound, guaranteed restoration of meaning, purpose, and joy in his life. The system works because we are interconnected. When the people around us are thriving, it naturally influences our own well-being.
This principle of releasing external control brings us to the next difficult concept, non-attachment. It's easy to be non-attached to a mean email, but how do we practice non-attachment when the stakes are genuinely high, involving the health of a child or profound loss?
This requires a sophisticated understanding of reality, which meditation teacher Sebene Selassie emphasizes. Non-attachment is not denying love or caring. It is honoring the truth of impermanence.
Impermanence.
Yes, she encourages the practice of the 5 remembrances meditations designed to integrate the reality of our existence.
What are those 5 remembrances?
They are the recollections that we are all of the nature to age, we are all of the nature to grow sick, we are all of the nature to die, we must inevitably separate from everything and everyone beloved to us, and our actions are our only true possessions.
That sounds quite morose on the surface.
It does, but integrating these truths is actually profoundly liberating.
Liberating because it allows for a healthily paradoxical mindset.
Exactly. As the Buddhist teacher Joseph Goldstein often quotes the poet T.S. Eliot, the goal is learning to care and not to care simultaneously. You engage with deep love, deep passion, and deep commitment, but without the suffering that comes from desperately clinging to the unrealistic idea that permanence is possible.
And Dr. Ellen Langer has a powerful personal story that demonstrates this exact paradox in the face of absolute disaster.
She does. Dr. Langer recounts the time her house caught fire. It was a massive disaster that destroyed 80% of her possessions.
And it happened on Christmas Eve of all times.
On Christmas Eve, compounding the emotional weight. When she called the insurance adjuster, he was astonished. He told her that in 25 years of handling disaster claims, this was the first time the caller sounded less distressed than the damage estimate warranted.
Why was her reaction so calm, given the immense personal loss?
She said her immediate response was simply that the items were already gone, burned or destroyed. Getting upset in the present moment couldn't restore them, so there was no point in generating secondary suffering. She accepted the reality instantly. And the outcome of this instantaneous reframing was surprisingly positive.
She describes the experience as wonderful.
She does, despite the obvious tragedy. While staying at a hotel, the staff, the chambermaids, the waiters, the security guards, the very people she calls the little people, were so touched by her situation that they mobilized, bringing her roomfuls of unexpected gifts and kindness, simply out of the basic goodness of human nature.
So she experienced a profound human connection she would never have had otherwise.
Exactly. And furthermore, because all her teaching notes and materials were burned, she was forced to innovate her syllabus and lecture preparation entirely on the spot, resulting in what she considers the most creative and effective class she ever taught. By reframing the disaster as an event already in the past, she unlocked a powerful, positive, and resourceful response.
That moves us beautifully from psychological reframing to physical rewiring, specifically using the nervous system. Dr. Christiane Wolf gives us a superb framework for understanding where our default state lies.
Dr. Wolf, a physician specializing in mindfulness, uses the traffic light model to categorize nervous system states. Red is fight, flight, panic, the state of acute danger.
The emergency state.
Right. Green is grounded, present, and at ease, the state of rest and digest. And yellow is vigilant, slightly stressed, and on edge, the low-level hum of anxiety. She observes that because of modern pressures, productivity guilt, and constant connectivity, most people live perpetually in the yellow zone.
That continuous low-level vigilance, the feeling of waiting for the next email or the next shoe to drop, that must be hugely draining on Dr. Picard's mitochondrial energy system.
It is.
Why do we default to yellow?
Often it's rooted not in current threat, but in learned behavior or historical trauma. Dr. Wolf notes that for some nervous systems, moving into the green state, the state of relaxation, is actually perceived as threatening.
Threatening. Why would relaxation be a threat?
Because there might be old associations, perhaps from childhood or previous environments, where relaxing, lounging around, or being deeply still was met with punishment, criticism, or the feeling of being unsafe or selfish. So the body unconsciously maintains vigilance to avoid that perceived danger.
So if we are in this ingrained yellow zone, we need actionable, instantaneous tools to downregulate. Dr. Wolf offers somatic micro-tools that can perform an immediate nervous system reset.
The first is the simple butterfly hug, a form of bilateral stimulation. You cross your arms over your chest and tap gently and alternately side to side.
And what does that do?
The rhythmic alternating stimulation calms the amygdala, the brain's fear center, helping to move the system from yellow toward green instantaneously.
And the second micro-tool, the air hunger exercise, seems designed to break the cycle of shallow, high-alert breathing.
It is remarkably effective and utilizes a clever physiological mechanism. The exercise involves exhaling completely, taking a deep inhale, and then holding your breath while performing a movement like 10 marching steps or a few squats.
Right.
The key is to notice the exact moment your brain requests air, which is the air hunger signal. You stop movement at that point, take a slow, deep breath in, and then exhale fully.
What is the mechanism behind that brief deprivation?
By briefly withholding the full inhalation, you increase the carbon dioxide levels in your blood. This is crucial because carbon dioxide is a powerful vasodilator. It causes the blood vessels to widen.
Ah, okay.
So when you finally take that deep, conscious breath, you facilitate a much bigger rush of oxygenated blood flow directly to the brain, leading to an instantaneous feeling of being brighter, clearer, or more sparkly. Dr. Wolf emphasizes that these micro-tools are vital because the nervous system responds instantaneously. We don't always have 40 minutes for a full mindfulness practice.
This shift from effortful conscious control to automatic default behavior is essential. If we have to consciously choose these healthy behaviors every day, we are relying on that fragile 5% conscious mind, which inevitably leads to willpower fatigue.
Exactly.
So how do we play life on easy mode?
This is the practical philosophy of Shane Parrish, the writer and high-performance expert. He studied consistent high achievers across disciplines and found a commonality. They avoid being in a bad position in the first place.
They set themselves up to win.
They do. His core principle is using personal rules to circumvent conscious choice and willpower, effectively turning desired behavior into default behavior.
This removes the negotiation entirely, which is the real killer of good intentions.
Absolutely. Willpower is a finite resource that is rapidly depleted by decision fatigue. Every time you ask yourself, should I go to the gym or should I eat that, you expend cognitive energy. Shane Parrish's rules eliminate the internal debate entirely.
Give us a concrete example of how this removed the element of negotiation for Shane Parrish himself regarding exercise.
He shared his struggle with a typical goal. I will go to the gym 3 days a week. He found that every morning he would engage in this debilitating internal negotiation. I'm tired, I'm slightly behind on work, I'll just do extra tomorrow.
We've all been there.
We have. The result was often only 1.5 days a week. His solution was to implement a simple, non-negotiable rule. I sweat every day.
I sweat every day. That rule eliminates the debate over duration, intensity, or the type of exercise. It just has to happen.
Exactly. The cognitive energy required to make the decision shifts from, am I going to work out today, to the much easier question, what does my workout look like today? The rule is black and white.
So simple.
And he suggests other powerful examples. Setting a strict bedtime, a rule, not a suggestion that can be violated by just one more episode. Or setting communication rules, such as not sending an email longer than 2 sentences. The rule signals to both yourself and others that this is simply the default setting, eliminating willpower fatigue.
We've talked about reframing our past, regulating our present with micro-tools, and establishing automated rules. But to truly rewrite the self, we must carve out space for self-conviction and clarity.
Yes.
This brings us to the necessity of solitude.
Yes.
Not the suffering of loneliness, but intentional, scheduled separation.
Solitude is where the dust settles, as Moganot describes it. Our brains are constantly processing information, and without periods of intentional non-consumption, we never allow the thoughts to settle and reveal true clarity.
So what's a practical way to do this?
Haemin Sunim advocates for taking 30 to 60 minutes alone, ideally going to a local park without the ubiquitous cell phone.
And the purpose of this simple act?
It restores balance and provides crucial perspective. When you are sitting at your desk or in your daily routine, stressful thoughts or problems can seem enormous and all-consuming. But when they are witnessed against the vast, impersonal backdrop of nature, the sky, or simple stillness, Haemin Sunim notes that those urgent thoughts shrink into what they often are, just little things. You gain a sense of proportion.
Mo Gaudat, recognizing the difficulty of disconnecting completely in modern life, offers a highly applicable suggestion for busy professionals who can't commit to a 40-day retreat.
He recommends what he calls a mini silent retreat every other Sunday. You set a specific endpoint, say 3 p.m., and from the moment you wake until that alarm sounds, you engage in a total disconnection from external stimuli.
What does that mean, total disconnection?
It means no consumption of knowledge, no books, no phone, no news, no use of timepieces, and crucially, no speaking.
That seems extremely challenging. No knowledge consumption, no time, no speech.
It is designed to force internal processing. By removing the external inputs and the sense of external time pressure, you are compelled to tune back into what you think, feel, and believe, rather than merely consuming the thoughts and priorities of others. Mo Gaudat notes that the practice is often breathtaking in its empowerment, through repetition rapidly generating clarity and self-awareness.
The clarity solitude provides helps us understand our internal filter, which is the final component of mental mastery. Dr. Ellen Langer defines mindfulness not as formal seated meditation, but as the active daily process of noticing new things about what you thought you knew.
That ability to notice is critical because our brain is designed to filter out the majority of reality. If we took in all the available data, we would be paralyzed by choice. Jim Kwik, the celebrated brain coach, describes the brain as a deletion device.
A deletion device.
Yes. Our reticular activating system, or RAS, a network of neurons in the brainstem, filters reality based on what we deem important, or, more specifically, based on the dominant questions we unconsciously ask ourselves.
So we don't experience raw reality. We experience a reality that is filtered and sculpted by our unconscious focus. If I buy a red car, suddenly I see red cars everywhere because my RAS has been primed.
Exactly. Jim Kwik gives a vivid example of his friend who, after deep self-reflection, realized her unconscious dominant question was, how do I get people to like me?
Wow.
That single, simple question shaped her entire focus. It dictated her behaviors, her energy expenditures, and her choices, constantly diverting her resources into people-pleasing and external affirmation. She was trapped by her own filter.
This means the most powerful thing we can do for our well-being is identify and adjust that dominant unconscious question. If that question is, why does this always happen to me? Then that is the reality the RAS will continue to manifest, constantly highlighting evidence of victimhood.
The power lies in shifting that filter, applying Dr. Ellen Langer's concept of noticing. If you are stressed, instead of asking, why is this awful and unfair, you consciously pose a different question. What are 3 reasons why this current difficulty might actually be an advantage? By opening up the question, you instantly relax the cognitive system and initiate a mindful search for a solution or a positive interpretation, rather than locking the system down into fear. It's an immediate, actionable cognitive reset.
This deep dive has revealed a powerful and unified narrative for internal mastery. We have journeyed from the undeniable mind-body link proven by Dr. Ellen Langer's revolutionary science through the power of our subconscious programming identified by Bruce Lipton, to the absolute choice of perspective championed by Mo Gaudat. We have then distilled the elegant simplicity of personal rules and stillness offered by Shane Parrish and Haemin Sunim.
The profound takeaway is that true empowerment is entirely internal. We are not simply victims of our external circumstances or our inherited programs. We possess the ability to become the conscious editors and creators of our physical and psychological reality.
To leave you with a final, provocative thought one that pushes us beyond mere resilience. Jim Kwik often speaks about cognitive anti-fragility. Resilience, by definition, is the capacity to bounce back to your original baseline after a shock. Anti-fragility, however, is the capacity to bounce forward. It means you grow stronger, more capable, and more efficient because of the stressor.
Consider this crucial truth. Difficulty, challenge, and stress are not just obstacles to be endured. They are the hormonal, cellular, and psychological forces that are necessary to cause us to grow stronger. As Jim Quick points out, if the worst thing you have ever experienced is now in your past and you survived it, you are already profoundly capable and anti-fragile. The system worked.
So we invite you to consider the current storms in your life, the difficult situation or challenge you are currently facing, and ask, what difficult situation are you currently facing that is actually preparation for your strongest, most capable, and most aware self? Embrace the fact that sometimes the trauma is simply a mandatory cellular reset.
Instead of avoiding the challenge, the invitation is to introduce a small, daily challenge, mental, physical, or emotional, to consciously build your own anti-fragility. Seek the stress that makes you better, rather than allowing the stress that makes you brittle. That is how you turn an uncertain life into a source of continuous internal growth.